Here we have the Behringer Toro, which means the S-Boat won, and I eventually opened the box. And if you're watching this, I imagine you fell on the side of the S-Boat, maybe just to hear my crap rap in the intro and not interested in the Toro whatsoever. But it is all getting a little bit weird, I have to say, so we'll see how things pan out in the future. Yeah, I feel a little bit like a UN peace envoy at the minute, and don't want to end up like Terry Waite. Went to the Middle East in the 80s to negotiate the release of hostages and ended up tied to a radiator himself for 4 years. So yeah, I'm treading carefully. Okay then, let's plug it in and have a little play. First thing I noticed when I got this out of the box was actually it feels like a really nice unit. It feels like the right sort of size, the same size as a vintage unit, for example. There's absolutely loads of room around everything. It doesn't feel cluttered in any way, and that's because it's such a super simple thing. We've just got 2 oscillators and you blend between them. We can detune oscillator B with this. I won't do that just yet because I've set it up. We've got a main tune knob, and then this beat here is basically a fine detune of oscillator B. We've got a very simple amplifier envelope. So attack. We can add decay. And then a simple filter as well, so cutoff, resonance. So it sounds really nice, that. But you don't get full range with this slider here. You've got to use this knob as well. And it sits there about, what's that, about 40 hertz. Doesn't go any lower than that. And then we've got this really weird little filter envelope, and I'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. At the minute, we're on variable, and that's panel mode effectively. Then we've got 3 presets: Toro, tuba, and then bass, which is more electronic. That's it. So you can see, as a big foot pedal thing, pushing these with your feet, you've got, you know, most low-end things covered there for simple bass lines. Also got glide. Interesting, the LED lights up when you bring it in, quite like that. We saw the decay a minute ago. That adds a preset amount of decay. Just take the glide off for a second. The decay knob is not doing anything. It only works in variable mode. So when we're in any of these presets, you can't knock any of the knobs and spectacularly wreck your gig. So quite clever. Then we've got this octave button here, and this effectively changes the incoming MIDI signal as far as I can tell. So take it off, put it on. And what we're noticing there is a 4-octave range. So there's 5 Cs that we can hit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Start that again from the octave lower. Nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Cs. Go up again. We get nothing. So we've got 4-octave range. This does something similar, this octave switch, but we need to put it onto variable. Let's take the emphasis off. And that's not changing the tuning of the oscillators. As I say, it's changing the MIDI signal going in, basically. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that it still can only play the same range of notes. So when you go to low, for example, you can't play an octave lower than you normally can. You're just playing it an octave lower And I know that sounds a bit weird. Let's see if I can explain that a bit better. This is low, medium, and high. But when I'm on low, that's the lowest note I can play. If I'm on medium, that's still the lowest note I can play. I can't play any lower. So basically just changes the incoming signal. So highest, that's the highest note I can play on oscillator A. Go up another octave, or go to the higher octave, it won't play anything because it'll only play that note. So I'm probably overcomplicating that because I was trying to suss it out for myself, but you don't have 4 octaves plus an octave and minus an octave, you have those 4 octaves. Oscillator B can go higher, so if we go to oscillator B, and it goes just over an octave higher, so you can play higher notes. Let's try and tune that to a C. Which is an octave higher than oscillator A can get here. So you can play quite high stuff, but nothing higher than that. You're not going to get really clangy things unless you start messing around with a filter CV, which I was doing in that intro track, to get some FM style tones. So let's create a couple of tones just to see what it can do. Let's bring this down again. Detune it. So you can do your Stefan Bodson stuff and a bit of glide. Wish I had a bigger keyboard actually, so I could just stick to the 4 octaves, keep on confusing myself. Add some attack. So it's got a really nice tone, hasn't it? And you'll notice that we've not got any oscillator shapes. We've got just 2 sawtooths. Play them independently. And B. And they sound really nice when you pitch them the same. The original Taurus was famed for not losing any bass as they phased in and out. Let's change the beat frequency. So this isn't working like the sub 37. I thought this was going to change the beat frequency there so that it would always stay the same. Sub 37 keeps it the same, which is really clever. It basically detunes one of the oscillators to keep that beat frequency the same. This doesn't do that. This is just a fine tune knob. And that's all there is to say really on the oscillators. They're so simple. We'll move over to the filter then, and we've heard this before. Nice and bright. Just turn it down so we don't blast anyone's ears. So that's going over 20 kilohertz. Lovely and smooth. You can't track the filter. Again, it's a super simple thing, but you do have this filter envelope, and this is very strange. When I first got it, I thought it was broken, to be honest. I tried the Cherry Audio version as well, and that does the same as this, which is most peculiar. So let's turn the emphasis up. Okay, now let's add some contour. So adding contour, like you'd think the envelope amount is what I'm thinking of it as. When you got the attack and the decay down, it's doing this. So adding the contour amount is giving you that transient. And then the attack doesn't reduce or doesn't open the filter. It actually says it does in the original Taurus manual, but this isn't doing what I think. It's just reducing that transient or the amount of modulation, which is really odd. And the decay just slows that down. So it acts in a sort of completely different way to any other envelope I've got. I'm just checking there, it just follows on in legato mode. But yeah, it's acting like a true analog envelope, picking up from where it left off basically. So if we try that on a normal sound, let's listen to a single oscillator. So you can hear the contour amount is adding contour, it's adding transient. And as we add the attack, it reduces the amount of that transient. It reduces the modulation amount. So it's playing with the attack, it's doing something to it, but it's not doing what you expect. And the decay just slows it down. Really weird, but it's nice that it's something different. Doesn't mean I can do different tones with that and I can do on other synths. Just means you approach it in a different way. So that's it. That's how it works. We've got the pitch CV, the filter CV, and the gate as well. So we'll have a little play with that. And what I've noticed is that once you put the pitch CV in, it completely supersedes the MIDI input. So it's not like you're modulating the pitch with an LFO, for example, on top of the note. And once you put a pitch CV in there, you have to use the gate. 1 octave, 2 octaves, 3 octaves, 4 octaves. So it's the 4th octave. So just over 4 octaves. But what I thought I might be able to do with the pitch CV was to modulate a pitch coming in from MIDI with the CV input. So use the CV from something like, I've got the Analog Solutions Colossus behind me. So put a triangle in from there. But it's just playing the triangle, it's not playing the MIDI and then a little bit of triangle on top. On the intro track, I used an oscillator from the Colossus as well to modulate the filter CV rather than a triangle. So if I bring that out, send the pitch in to the oscillator on the Colossus. Some quite nice stuff happening there. So you can do more experimental bits and bobs with it. You can fit it into your rack and you can get those FM tones. But I think, you know, if you're going to do that, and if that's what you're really interested in doing, maybe you'd get another synth that's got more functionality on board. But it is possible. And it's good fun. Now, the intro track was mixing between oscillators A and B, slightly detuned, which meant I was getting slightly different amounts of modulation or beat frequencies on the modulation. Just lots of little fun things you can do. Let's try a little arpeggio or something on it, shall we? Do it all via MIDI. So there we have it, the Behringer Toro. If you want big, thick, rich, juicy, simple bass tones, take a look at this. If you want something that does more complex things, take a look at something else. I completely understand why someone might want this. A guitarist, for example, that just wants to fill in that low end, like with the original Taurus pedals. You're not going to go too far wrong. You're not going to knock a knob and just spectacularly wreck your gig. This is so simple, you can't really do that with it. So it's nice for what it is, but you're not going to get a million tones from it. It doesn't go very high, it doesn't do polyphony, it doesn't do FM, it doesn't do sync. You can't really, well, you can't pick any other waveforms. So for me, I would struggle to find a use for it, but I have got lots of other synths. Something like the Selena, for example, although it's simple, I don't have anything else that replicates those sounds, whereas this, I have other stuff. So, a really nice unit, and it's actually a nice little size. It feels like it's the right size. It doesn't feel cramped in any way. It feels really nice and spacious. It's a nice little thing, but if you want more of a synthy synth, I will go with a more complex synth. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon, where for the price of a non-fat latte with 2% foam per month, you can support the channel, or check out my starskycar.com website. I've got patches up there and samples that you can buy, or you can do what everyone else does and just pick up the free bits. But whatever you can do to support the channel really helps. And I will see you next time.